Hey everybody, it's Anna and welcome back to my booktube channel. This video is going to be the second part of my two-part series of various experiences that I talk about on my channel that defined 2019 for me. So the first part of things that defined 2019 was my books that defined 2019. If you haven't watched that yet, I will go ahead and link it upstairs so that you are able to find that. And that's where I talk about all of the books and reading experiences that I had that defined 2019. This video is not going to be about that. This video is going to be about mostly board games, but a couple other geeky events that really defined the year for me. And I tried to limit myself to only writing one page worth of things because otherwise this video would be way too long. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first geeky moment that defined 2019 for me was playing the Muppets RPG at OrcaCon. OrcaCon is a small weekend-long tabletop gaming convention that happens locally to me every year, and early on in 2019, as I say this, I'm actually about to go to the 2020 OrcaCon this weekend, so that's how early in the year it was. I played a version of the Fate RPG where we all played as Muppets and we had to basically save the Muppet show because our stage had been stolen, our costumes had been stolen, our chairs had been stolen, and that was just one of the most wacky, inventive, and unique experiences that I've ever had while playing an RPG, and I just adored that. So the second thing that defined 2019 for me was while I was at Shucks, which is one of the board game conventions that Sean and I went to together last year, and that's the one that's in Canada. While we were there, we bought the last copy of Black Angel that was for sale in North America. This is a sort of futuristic science fiction game about traveling on a ship to a new world, and you basically play as all of the robots that are going around taking care of the ship and exploring while the humans are sleeping in cryostasis. So we bought the last copy of the game that was available for sale and basically sat down and learned how to play it, and two board game designers, Tim and Ben Eisner, both showed up and we learned how to play it together. That was kind of really the start of something amazing because since then we've seen one or both of them on the internet. We saw them in PAX Unplugged, other things that we've done, gotten to play test some of their new games, but just sitting there and watching our brains melt out of our faces on the last day of this convention while we tried to figure out how to play this really complex game that you think it plays one way, but it actually turns out to play completely differently was such fun, and I'm really grateful that it introduced us to some truly amazing people. The next geeky moment that defined 2019 was when we were at PAX Unplugged, finally getting to meet the folks that I work with at ttrpg. So if you haven't heard me talk about this yet, ttrpg is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated towards making tabletop role-playing games more accessible to players who are blind and visually impaired. So my role in that organization is I write image descriptions of all of the artwork that you would find in RPG books, because a lot of the world building for RPGs comes through the artwork, and if you can't see the artwork or if you have low vision, we want to provide an alternative means for you to experience that world building and such like that. So Dots also makes Braille dice. They also get RPG books embossed into Braille and basically generally promote inclusivity and accessibility for all gamers. So I got to meet Tyler, Jess, and Joey and a bunch of other volunteers that work for Dots and do cool things for them. I got to become an ambassador for our Braille dice that we make. So I have this little it's like a little translucent green die, and you can't really see it because the lighting is bad, but all of the sides of this D20 are in Braille, and we basically 3D print these entire sets to give to players that need them to use them. And we had just this wonderful afternoon together. We went to the Queen and Rook, which is a board game cafe in Philadelphia. We sat down, we played some Braille Uno, had some snacks and drinks, and it was just one of the greatest moments of my year. I just left feeling reinvigorated by the power of friendship and how awesome it all was. And yeah, that made me smile quite a lot. Okay, the next thing that defined 2019 for me was that this year, not only did I write an original adventure for the Mouse Guard RPG, but I also ran it at a convention. I ran it at Shucks. That was my first time ever running an RPG at a convention. This is the one I'm talking about, Mouse Guard. It's my favorite RPG ever. And you basically play as these guard mice. It's very much based off of the tradition of the Redwall books. And you play mice of the guard whose job it is to protect and serve like mice and other woodland creatures and stuff like that. So I wrote this adventure in which a bunch of mice had to deal with the problem of some crows disrupting a mouse harvest, and there was an elderly mouse's birthday party that they all had to plan with, and a slightly bumbling mayor, and just writing that was so much fun, but then seeing it come to life with the players that got to enjoy it at the convention was even better than I could have hoped for. So I'm really excited to write more RPG adventures and supplements in 2020 because I realize that's something that not only can I do, but I like doing it and I'm good at it. So I want to keep practicing that and have more fun with these games. But I would also like to run more RPGs at conventions. I was definitely really nervous because, especially as somebody that, like, I'm white, but I'm not a straight dude, at conventions does put me in a demographic that tends to be on the receiving end of some harassment. But I was lucky and that didn't happen, and I was very fortunate that I got to play with some amazing players in a really supportive environment. Also, big shout out to the people that run Alexandria RPG. That is basically a traveling RPG library that's headquartered in the Pacific Northwest. They travel around to a bunch of cons and they have like a free con-specific lending library for people in attendance. They also provide free safety tools for RPGs, and they have a giant logbook where everybody that GMs in their like lounge at the convention gets to write down the story of their adventure. So thank you so much for providing that space and providing much needed discussion around safety tools. I will go ahead and link them as well as everybody else. Like, I'll link dots, all of the organizations and such that I talk about down below. All right, so the next thing that defined 2019 for me was that was the year that I really began cosplaying in earnest. So I technically made my first cosplay for, let's see, it would have been PAX West 2018 and then Geek GirlCon 2018. I made a couple sort of hastily thrown together last minute cosplays for that, but 2019 was the year that I really started cosplaying in earnest. And that culminated in me debuting a Traveler Con Jester from Critical Role that I basically made out of clothes from my closet, a whole lot of blue eyeshadow used as contour, and just some fun creative inventiveness that I hadn't really gotten to put to use in a while. And I was awarded a Judge's Choice Award for that, which was awesome and surprising. And I really just enjoyed the experience, not just of creating the cosplay. Like, of course, it's nice to win an award, but the real fun part of it was actually getting to be in the competition, go down the catwalk, talk about my process with the other cosplayers and the judges, and just get to meet new friends, especially like new people that were cosplaying the same character as me, which was super awesome, and we're still in touch. So that was great. Piggybacking off of the cosplay a little bit, earlier in the year I did a bow cosplay from Critical Role, and that was when my friend Kara and I went to actually go meet the Critical Role cast at Emerald City Comic Con, which was amazing. I will still be forever thankful that Marisha Ray kindly just gave me a hug when I started to cry, telling her how much her character of Keyleth means to me, and also to the wonderful lady staffing the autograph line who handed me a handful of tissues, and she goes, "It's okay, I understand." And I was like, thanks, I'm just having a moment crying over a fictional character. But that was just really amazing. It was a kind of one of those uncanny scenarios where I look back to my friend and I go, did that really just happen? Did we really just meet them and talk to them? And like these people that have created a story and a piece of media that's like so important to the both of us and obviously many other people, just taking the time to talk to us was really, really special. And then, let's see, the last two things are a little bit more amorphous. Okay, So this is both a geeky highlight and sort of a friendship highlight of 2019, but my same friend Kara that I met the Critical Role cast with and who's been one of my best friends since I've moved to Seattle got married this year to an awesome person, and they had a phenomenal Lord of the Rings themed wedding together, and I was honored to be in their bridal party as Legolas the elf. They modeled their bridal party after the entire Fellowship of the Ring, so they got married by our friend who was playing Gandalf. Everybody who was a guest at the wedding came dressed for Middle-earth. My husband came dressed as Bilbo Baggins, and he's now canon as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, people, Bilbo has a brown beard. This is just how it works. And not only was that just a wonderful celebration of their love, but also their involvement and enthusiasm for geekiness and fandom, and it was just a magical, magical night. And then the last sort of nerdy moment that defined 2019 was that my main D&D campaign has, around the time of our anniversary of us starting to play together, we actually bought a house in our D&D campaign, because let's not get too ahead of ourselves. It is kind of unrealistic to imagine that we would be able to buy a real house in this area in this economy, but in D&D we were able to do it, which is awesome because we basically got to sit down and have like an entire D&D session that was like building a house in The Sims, where we went, okay, well, we want to spend these points on having a war room, and maybe we should have like a caravansary to boost our local economy and stuff like that. So that was a really fun session for our D&D campaign, and it's also one of those things that kind of proves the meme about D&D is great because you get to do all the things that you don't get to do in real life, like have money, go on adventures, etc. So that was really fun, and I just really enjoyed getting to do that with people that have become some of my very close friends since moving here. Of course, there were a lot more nerdy and geeky moments that I really enjoyed experiencing in 2019, but I hope that listening to me talk about the ones that defined the year for me is inspiring to you to go out there and create some geek love of your own. If you would like to leave a comment down below, please share with me whatever your favorite nerdy or geeky moment was of 2019. It can be about whatever the thing is that you are most passionate about. I firmly believe everybody has at least one thing that they're very passionate about, and I'd love to hear about what stuck with you throughout the year with regards to that kind of thing. If you like this video and you'd like to see more of what I do, please do hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to get notified whenever I post new videos. As always, thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!